Hey guys, welcome to the channel once again, and today we're going to be learning the basics of rigging, everything you need to know about rigging. If you've never created a rig for a character, this is the perfect video for you, and I'm going to be taking it really slow and really easy so you could follow along as well. Well, this character is one I got from Sketchfab, and I'm going to be dropping the link in the video, and I'll also drop the Blender file so you could follow along easily, right? Because sometimes these characters have issues. I work on the characters so that it's going to be easy for you to rig, and I join them together. Okay, now what is rigging essentially? So most people always ask, what does rigging entail? Basically, rigging just means using bones to control or deform your objects, and that's all you need to know about rigging. Just creating bones, creating a number of bones, selection of bones to basically to control your character or to deform a character. It's that easy. That's all you need to know about rigging. Now there's some, definitely you might face some challenges once you're rigging, but in due time it's going to get easier. But for this video, I'm going to keep it very simple and very easy for us to be able to flow. And so let's jump right into the video. Now, as I said, rigging is basically creating bones, and the first thing we need to know is how to create a set of bones. Now, okay, let me just enable my screencasts once again. And yes, okay. Let me increase my mouse size as well. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, of course, I'm on one view, and I'll also always tell some of my students, whenever you are creating rig, always ensure to use the front view, the side view, and also the left view. It really helps a lot. So I'm just going to jump right in. I'm going to move my character a bit up so it could be above the grid. And then, so how do we create bones? We create bones with Shift A, amateur, and single bone. Now there are other parts, there are other ways to create bones. There are human meta rig, where you could create, where, because Blender has a default custom bone where you could just use to rig your character. But today we're not going to be looking at any of that. We're going to just be only working with our single bone, and we're going to be creating our rig ourselves. Now, first thing you need to know is this right here is a bone, and you need to know how to create bones, how to extrude bones, dissolve bones, and all of that. I'm going to run through that real quick. Okay, so once you create a bone, you'll notice that your modes change. That's the first. Now, typically you have object mode, edit mode, weight paints, sculpt mode, any other thing. But once you start working with bones, you have just three modes. We have the edit mode where we create bones, where we basically edit bones, and we have the pose mode where our bones interact with our mesh. And yeah, so we'll understand this better once we continue. Now, once you create a bone, I advise you create your bone in object mode, then you click on it and jump into your edit mode. Right, so here is where you warp on your bone. So there are various ways to create bones. Now you could shift A, you could just shift A, and when you edit mode, once you shift A, it just creates a bone quickly. Right, so this is another bone, this is another bone. Now we have three bones here. Let me just delete this and keep this easy. Okay, now you have to know, in a bone we have the head, which is this, and we have the tail, and we have the body of the bone. Now, once you could use the head to rotate. Um, you could use it's just like working with an object, right? But for rotation, you typically use the head. You don't really rotate the tail. And so to get your smooth rotations, you use R, and you rotate the head, and you'll notice that the tail stays in place. To move your objects, you can just move from the body, right? So to move your objects, mostly move from the body. And yeah, and to scale is just similar standards apply. You could just scale. What I typically love to do, if I want to scale down, I just click on the head G. I click on the head, click G and Z, and you could see it's scaling down really smoothly. Or you could just click on the body, click on S and scale. So it's really that easy. It's that straightforward, especially once you're just working with basic freaks. And hopefully we get to the inverse kinematic stage where it gets really fun. So rigging is actually very fun. Okay. So another thing you need to know how to do is I was teaching how to create bones. So you could just duplicate a bone, shift D and move the bone. You could shift D again and move the bone. So we have 3 sets of bones, right? So I can just delete this as well. Delete it. Another way to create a bone is to extrude. Typically we extrude with E, so E also applies here. You could just extrude a set of bones. And I mean, just extruding them and move it using my cursor to get them to move. Okay, so we have sets of bones. I want you to understand this. Once you extrude the bones, all of those bones are part of. Once you extrude the bone, all of those bones are part of the root bone or the first bone you created. It's that easy. Now, if you go to pose mode and I move the bone, you could see all the bones together move together as one because they're all connected, or yes, they're all connected to the first bone. Okay, so I'll go back to my edit mode. I could just Ctrl Z. Okay. Or I could then just delete all this. AX delete. Okay, Shift A to create under bone. Now, and that very cool way, and I use this a lot, and we'll definitely use this once we are working on this, is subdividing bone. So once you have the bone, you could just right click and subdivide. See, once you subdivide, it's just like extruding bones. The bone should be part of the subdivided bone constitutes or makes the is part of the root bone. Okay, so that is what we have here. So with this knowledge, we will be able to create bones. And that thing I think is essential for you to know is parenting bones. Now you learned in edit mode, object mode, how to parent objects, but I'll just do that again. So what I'll just do is basically you click on this and you click on this with your shifts and you click on Control P, make parent keep offsets. Now you could see this line that appeared here. It means that this bone is now connected to this bone, right? So I think if I go to my pose mode and I rotate, it affects the second bone or the child, right? So that is the relationship between these two bones, one to parents. So anywhere I move, anywhere the parent bone moves, the child bone moves as well. Okay, so if you want to clear parent, and I think this is also very essential, it's Alt P and clear parents. And you see the line is vanished. So basically anything you want to typically undo, well, not with Ctrl Z, you use Alt. For example, if I hide this bone with H is hidden, I could just use Alt H to bring the bone back. So always remember, Alt is basically like to redo an action or undo an action. Okay, so with that being said, I think it's a good time for us to just jump right back into our character. Right, so I think we could just create, I could go to edit mode and let me delete this bone. Sorry, X to delete. Okay, so now we have character and we're trying to create a complete armature for the character, or a complete set of bones. Just think of it like creating a skeleton. But in this tutorial, we're not going to be so super detailed. We're not going to create bones for the things like the fingers, for the eyes, for the ears, just for the body. And eventually we're going to work this up to a work cycle. So kindly like and subscribe the video and turn on your notification, because after this I'm going to be dropping a work cycle tutorial on how all this comes together with the rig. Okay, so first thing is I'm just going to move this up with my G and Z. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to create the basic foundation of my bone, right? Of all the human skeleton, which is the spine. So I'm going to be creating the spinal bones. Okay, so you notice that you also have various options here in different modes, and we're going to be touching them as we go. So the first is the data, the bone data. Don't confuse it with your objects data, which we normally have. So once you come here, as you can see, my bones are hidden. You can't see it. And of course, to be able to work, I need to be able to see my bones. So the first thing is I'll just come here to the bone data, click on viewport display, click on in front, and we have this, and it's really nice. So anywhere, any angle we are, we can see our bones. Okay, so because it's going to be in front all the time, or our object is like transparent. I don't know if that's the right term, but at least we can see through our object to see the bones. Okay, so I'm just going to, the plan here is to just create a set of spines, right? And to create a set of spine and hands and feet, so you could get a feel of exactly what rigging is about. So I'm just going to extrude the bone. I'm going to create 3 spines. Why I'm doing this is so that I can have basic controls for the lower torso, the chest, and the upper torso. Okay, so I'll click on 3. Remember earlier I told you in the video that we're going to be jumping between 1 and 3 a whole lot. Now we have the 3 spinal bones. Next is to create a bone for the neck. Now this, our child character has a very short neck, so we'll just keep it short, like so. Then we'll create one for the head. With E, is going to be significantly bigger because the character has like a big head. Okay, so we have one part of our rig. I remember all I used here was just I extruded. Though we're going to work on other means of creating bones. Okay, so this is really interesting. So what I'm going to do now, I want to create bones for the feet. Now, as I said, we're not going to be going into super details, so I'm just going to click on Shift A, and I have a new bone. So I'll just come here, it's G, and I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis 90 degrees. So R, X 90. Or let me try R, Y 90. That's strange, that didn't work. R, X, yeah, that's strange. Okay, once you just get to the rotating part, just zoom, just edit. Okay, so I'm just going to R to rotate this bone. I'm going to keep it towards the hip of the character, and I'm just going to move this a bit forward. I'm going to explain why in just a few. So the next thing is I'm just going to extrude another bone. Right, I'm just going to extrude another bone like so. Okay. One thing that will definitely help is, as you're watching, you kindly practice as well. It really helps. Okay. So we have this. What I need is I need a hip bone. I need something like the lower shin, and I'm going to extrude another bone for the whole feet. Well, because of, I think it's also reasonable to just subdivide this bone so we could have a both a toe section and a heel section. So I'll right click and subdivide so we have two bones, right? Um, okay, so this is like the joint. We have the heel and we also have our toes. But what I can do is just move it forward. So the heel can be significantly bigger, and then I'll move the toe a bit inside. Now, this is really coming together really nicely. And yeah, so I'm just going to keep running. I will not creating so many bones. So I'm just going to duplicate. I've shown you how to extrude a bone. I've shown you how to use Shift A to create a bone, and I'll show you how we could use the Shift D to create a bone. And I'll come here, rotate this bone, and scale down like so. Okay, what I'm just going to do is I'll start extruding these bones. Now I'm just going to use my own there's no set rule for this, but I'm just going to use my initiative because my character has an elbow but it's not well defined. So I'm just going to figure out where I'll put the elbow. So I think I like here, and I'm going to extrude again. Or just kindly make the bone in proportion and to fit properly. And another thing that's going to help you, something else that's really important is once you're working with a character, kindly move your character to various points so you could see where the bones are facing, because it's so easy for the bones could get to the wrong places. Okay, so I'm just going to click on the head of the bone and move it inwards like so. Okay, and I can just subdivide this bone and just create something like so. I'm trying to create something I'm trying to create a handle for the thumb and one for the hand, the palm rather. And once I turn it around, I would see that my rig is a bit scattered at the bone, so I'm just going to arrange it. Now, best advice I can give is once you're working with this, just take your time. It's always a bit complex at the beginning, and most times especially once you're trying to create things like bones for the hands, it's never going to be straight. So just take your time and move it around. So I have something really nice here, and I think I really like this. Now you might be asking, or you might be like, it's a whole lot of work for Cho to create bones for the right and the left, and if there's a way, and some of you might even be trying to use a mirror modifier, but there's nothing for all that. All these have provisions in Blender. So I just want to move the feet to the center. Okay, so this is really nice. Okay, so I'm going to just attach the necessary bones because I want to join the thigh to the spine bone and the shoulder to something like that around here, right? I'm just going to adjust this really well. Okay, just going to scale now because this is basically collarbone or shoulder bone, and this is right, the upper arm, the lower arm. I don't even know what to call this one, but I'm just going to find a way to rename all these bones. So I'm going to parent the thigh bone to the first spine, which is like going to be the root of all our objects, rather all our bones. To parent a bone is Ctrl P, keep offset, and you could see this visible line, this very visible dotted line, which signifies parenting. Next thing, I'm just going to find a place to parent the collar or shoulder bone. I'm just going to scale down a little bit. Okay. I'm going to parent it to the highest point of the spine, which is close to the shoulder. Ctrl P, keep offsets. Now, how to test out whether all your bones are intact is basically in pose mode, right? So if I do this R, you could see all the collection of bones move together. if I do this, if I click on G, because remember, this spine here is the first spine we created, and I think is the foundation for all the other bones. So if I move it, it moves all the bones. If I move the thigh, it moves all the parts of the thigh. So you see? So I think this is really nice. Now, one thing that is going to really help you and for the purpose of this video and our lessons is kindly, once you're creating objects or bones, kindly ensure that they are at the right places, or use your basic idea of what the human body looks like, or the skeleton, because typically our knees are normally bent a bit forward for easy mobility, right? Likewise our thighs, likewise. Of course, we've not done worked on our fingers yet, but I'm just trying to make everything really easy for the now. Okay, so now what do we do after this? We're going to just find a way to narrow the bones, and we're going to use symmetrize. We're not going to use any modifier, it's just symmetrize, and it's really easy. So I'm just going to select all of these. No, but before then, I think it's really important that we know how, if we symmetrize our bones, nothing is going to happen. Let me just show you. The option for symmetrize isn't even available because we have not named our bones. You need to be able to name your bones so Blender can find a way to attach what's on the left to what's on the right. And it's also important to know that once we are creating, we're symmetrizing our bones, we have to name it .l, because .l is like the code for Blender to know that all the bones you've created is on the left and you need to send it to the right. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how we do that real quick, and it's a really easy procedure, right? So I'm just going to start from the foot, which I always do. Remember, everything is going to end with a .l, or rather everything on the left hand side, because this is the left hand side, which is at the arms and the legs, because the spine it's not in the left, it's at the center, so there's no need to put a .l. Very important to note, the head doesn't need .l because all this is at the center, the head, the neck, and the spinal bones. Okay. So I'm just going to do this. Click on 3. I'm going to name this heel. I'm going to name this heel. Function 2. To rename an object or a bone is function 2, right? F2, or if you're not using a number, just click on the function key like me and F2. So I'm just going to name this toe or foot tip .l. That means .left, meaning it's facing the left. So I'm going to do that here again. I'm going to do heel. That's like the heel of the foot, heel.l. That means on the left hand side. This typically I should just call this leg. I could just name it leg or shin. So I could just say leg.l. So these are going to be the thigh bones. So I'm just going to name it thigh bones.l. Okay. Okay, let me go continue with the hands. So I'm just going to name it palm bone for the palm bone.l. This, I'm trying to extrude this into the thumb without having to do so much. So I'm just going to call this thumb.l. Next, this is going to be, I don't know what this is called. I'm just going to call it hand, lower hand, right? Lower hand. Or, okay, basically, I don't need too many bones. So I'm just going to, let me see. Let me just delete this bone, okay? and I'll just do this. So I can have just one bone. Okay. So we don't have too many bones, and too many bones means many controls. I'm just going to call this function 2. Lower arm, or just hand. Let's just say hand plus L. Definitely there are better names to give this, but if you can, kindly name yours in a better way, but kindly use .l every time. Okay, so I'm just going to check up here for arm. I'm going to name this arm.l. And I think this is like a shoulder. So I'm just going to rename for function F2 shoulder.l. Or you could name it collarbone if you wish. Now we finish naming all the left hand side bones. The hand, the thigh, the shin, the leg, the feet. Now let's rename the center. I remember the center won't have a .l because it's at the center. It's at the middle, not at the left hand side. Okay, so kindly spine bone 1. Okay, sorry. The next thing is spine bone 2. That's really easy. Remember function. If you don't have a numpad, kindly use fn and 2. Yeah, function 2. So let me just say this spine bone 3. And always remember, don't leave any bone left out. We name all of them. It's so important right now. Okay, so I'm just going to check here. Function F2, this should be the neck. Sorry, the neck. And the head. So all our bones are properly named, and I think it's really nice. So I'm just going to select all of them. I remember once you're working on bones, everything you're working on, any bone you are creating, every single bone you subdivide, extrude must be done in edit mode. Everything, don't create a new bone in object mode. Use one you created and use it all in edit mode. Okay, that's the best tip I could give. Okay, so I'm just going to right click here and I'll symmetrize. Okay, so once you symmetrize, you'll notice that everything on the right appeared on the left. Now, don't be discouraged. Sometimes yours may not work exactly like mine. Sometimes your bones might be like this. It happens all the time. So don't be worried. Just click on G and move them to the right hand side. So all your bones might be this way. So just move them this only. Just move them inwards. And yeah, your rig is basically ready to go. So this is as easy as it is. This is a very, very good rig. And you understand why just in a few. Now, I think we can go to our pose mode and try and see how it works. So if I just rotate, you notice that it moves perfectly. Now, question you ask yourself, why is the mesh not moving? Now, that is pretty simple because we've not parented the armature to the character. We've not done that. Okay, so let's try and get that done. So I'm going to click on this here. I'm going to click on the character first. I'm going to hold shift and click on the bones. Remember, this order is right now because the bones are going to be the parent and the character or the mesh is going to basically be the child. So the order has to be mesh first, hold shift and character second. Control P, automatic weights. Set parents to automatic weights. Now, sometimes this will take the time. It will load and it's trying to calibrate the weights. Then it will definitely parent. Now, sometimes this may take more time depending on the type of computer you're using and the type of mesh you are working with. Okay, so if you can see, mine is still loading, so I'll just give it a bit of time to load completely, and we're done. Okay, so sometimes your automatic weights may fail, and I'll definitely do a session on how we could probably troubleshoot or fix all errors concerning automatic weights. So once I go to pose mode and I click this, click on R, you notice that my character moves perfectly. The hand moves well. I click on 3 and you see that this is what we have. And this is really nice. So basically we are done creating our rig. But however, there's something else we need to understand, and that is the basics of inverse kinematics. You will notice something, that the human body typically doesn't move. If you're walking, your body doesn't move just straight, or all your legs don't move straight. They move together as one. As you move your thigh, your your shin moves as well, your toe moves as well. And to be honest, we can't do them one on one, but there's a better way to get all these things done. So A, pose, transform, clear, transform, all. Now what I basically did, if for example I move this way, I move this way, and I bend the head, okay, that's part of the hair, but no stress. I could just click A, pose, and clear, transform, all, and our character will be back to normal. So you could come to pose, clear, transform, all. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be jumping into is IK, the inverse kinematics and the forward kinematics. And you might ask yourself, what exactly is the inverse kinematics I've been yapping all about? So the best way I could explain the inverse kinematics is, once you have controller or you have the IK, it moves a series of bones. But yes, it moves a series of bones. It moves both the shin and the thighs, the heels and the toes. It doesn't just move one bone, right? Or unlike forward kinematics that just moves only one bone. So if I just grab this and I move this, you could see it's only the shin bone moving. It doesn't move the thigh, it doesn't move the heels, it does not move the toes. All it moves is the single bone, and that's just the basic idea of forward kinematics. Unlike inverse kinematics, where it moves a series of bones and it moves it pretty smoothly, right? So as we continue with the video, we'll definitely understand more in practice. Okay, so let's just try and get a hang on our IK. So basically, now we have all our controls set. I'm going to be adding an inverse and IK constraint. So basically, it's a constraint, and there are loads of constraints here. There are probably more than 30, but we're going to for the purpose of this video, we are just going to work with the inverse kinematics, and the copy location is very easy. Now you'll be asking yourself, where am I going to add my inverse kinematics? So basically, to have a very good IK, we're going to need some set of controllers which are going to control the whole leg movements. Okay, now let's just create the bones which are going to serve as our controllers. So the first bone I'm going to create is this. I'll just turn this off. I'll click on E and Y to extrude the bone on the Y axis, and Alt P to clear the parents, GY to move it a bit on the Y axis. And I'm also going to create another controller for the knee. So it tells our bone where to point, or our legs where to point. So I'm just going to clear the parents as well with Alt P. Okay. Now I'm going to move it with GY and have something like this. So kindly ensure your legs are a bit bent like this, like the knee is protruding forward a bit more, right? So just make sure your setup is this way, and most likely you will not face much problems with the IK. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into pose mode. And before that, I'm just going to rename. You can rename a bone on pose mode or the edit mode. So first thing is I'm going to just add the IK so we can understand exactly how it works. So I'm going to add an inverse kinematics. Now, the inverse kinematics is always going to be on the shin, on the bone above, directly above the controller, right? Okay, so I'm going to put a target. Targets would definitely be amateur. Now, the amateur on mine might be different from yours depending on what your scene setup is like. But most likely you see an amateur. If you see an amateur 001, you can as well check that. You could also click on it. But I'm just going to click on amateur, and then for the bone, I want the bone to be this controller right here. All right. So I'm just going to rename the bone to control ik.l. So it's going to serve as my control ik.l for the left side. And I'm going to click bone, search for control ik.l. And you notice that there was a slight movement in my character. Okay, so once I add my control, you'll notice that if I move the controller, it controls the whole character, right? It controls the whole character, which is not supposed to be so. The plan is for it to just control the legs, basically control these bones, the leg bone and the thigh bone. Okay, so how I'm going to fix that is I'm going to click on this again. The chain length controls the number of bones it's going to affect. So I'm just going to change it to 2. And then that way, once I move that bone, it moves just 1. And you could see the IK in actual progress. So once you just move the controller, it moves both the thighs, the shin, and the feet. Now, there are certain things we're going to have to work on. For starters, what we need to do is we need to control the direction in which the leg is going to point, because you could see it deforms easily. You could see where the leg is pointing. So if I just do this, you could see the knee is pointing to the wrong direction, which is okay because I've not fixed it. So what I'm going to do next basically is I'm going to rename this. Let's go function F2, and I'm going to name it my target pull targets dot L. And now I named it that because that is what is required. That's the name here. So pull target, I'm just going to name it amateur again. I'm going to name it, I'm going to insert the amateur. The bone is going to be my pull targets.l. Now you notice that once you do this correctly, your leg is going to flip. Totally understandable. It's just a geometry thing on Blender. So I'm just going to change this to around 90 degrees, and our leg snaps back into place. Okay. Now, next step, I'm just going to move it again. You could see it deforms. The control is a bit better. Now, it's going to be a bit more fluid, understandable. We're going to work on that. Now, the next step is just going to be parenting, right? We're going to parent this controller to this controller, the pull target to the IK control. So, it points in the right direction, and we can use the IK or the controller to rotate the whole leg. So I'm just going to select this one at first. Remember, the order has to be perfect. Pull target.L first, then you hold shift, click on this second controller, Control P, keep offset. Okay, I'll go back to my pose mode, and then you notice that I have a bit more fluent and fluid IK, right? Now, of course, it's still going to deform once in a while, so you just have to be careful. Okay, another very important thing is you'll notice that if I move this down, you could see and the IK holds it down, but the legs are sinking, right? And this will really give us a bit of problem if we ever do any animation with it. So we're just going to fix that easily. we're going to fix that real easily, right? And I'm going to add another constraint. So constraint I'm going to add a constraint on the heel, right? So it doesn't sink, and it's just a very straightforward process. I'm going to go back to constraints, and this is bone constraints. Remember, not the normal constraints, the bone constraints. I'm going to come here, copy location. The target should be okay. Before that, I'm going to just do a bit of parenting. I'm going to parent this this bone to like the heel to the IK controller. Shift Ctrl P. Once you do this, your character will be very easy to animate. Now, okay, so now let me show you what that basically does. So if I click on G, you notice that the leg doesn't sink anymore. But once you lift it up, it's good because it's disconnected from I disconnected the heel from the shin bone, so it's going to form very awkwardly. And basically we're just going to fix that. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to come here to constraints, add a copy location. Target would be armature. The bone is going to be the leg.l, because that is where I previously dislocated it from. And you'll notice there's a bit of craziness in the geometry, but that's all right. So I'm just going to click on this geometry head tail. I'm going to just scroll it all the way down. Now, these are just presets, default presets in Blender, so you just have to adjust it as much as you can and follow the steps and you'll be fine. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to click on the controller, and once I move, you notice that I have a very good IK and geometry, right? Of course, it's going to deform just a little depending on the character and what the mesh is like. So certain characters, like my character has bootstraps and even the hair, you could notice that when I parented my objects, I think I failed to parent the hair, but it doesn't really matter. We can always work something out with that. So I think basically, if you follow the video and you study it, you understand basically what IK is, the basis of creating bones, the basics of IK and inverse kinematics, copy location, and how it all comes together. So with that, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, but I'm not done. There's something else I need to do. Remember, we created controls for only the left hand side, and the right hand side is feeling a bit left out. So all we're just going to do is pretty easy. We'll go to edit mode, and we're just going to select all the bones again. Make sure you include all the controllers and the tie, and you now right click and symmetrize. Then you'll notice that we now have a perfect symmetry, and we have controllers for both feet. Okay, so we have controllers for both feet. So if I just click on this and okay, this now, if you notice during the video I've been clicking on this, and what this basically does, if you click on it, it will apply the changes. Whatever move you make on the right hand side will be made on the left hand side. It's basically like the mirror effect. So if I do this, you notice that both feet are moving, which I don't want, unless in certain areas maybe I'm trying to do something that will be identical on both areas, and I'm going to show you what you can do, but let me just turn this off for now. So this is the right hand side. If I just click, you'll notice that I have very smooth IK. So okay, let's say I want to just rotate the arms like so. I'm just going to click on this button. Now I'm going to rotate the arms. Now you notice that both of them are working at the same time. So we have a really nice setup for a work cycle or for any animation at all we want to do. So this is very beginner friendly, and I'm going to drop this character. I'm going to drop um the link to download or the blend file just so you could download it directly yourself and work with. Okay, with that being said, I think that is the basics of the rigging and IK and everything you need to know for basic rigging. Kindly like and subscribe this video. If you have any concern, drop it in the comment and I'm going to address them one by one. And if you are facing any challenges or you want more insights as to which video you want me to do next, which is going to help, kindly drop it in the comments as well. And definitely I'm going to do those videos and get back to you on that. So thank you so much. Kindly like, again, subscribe, and turn on your notification for more incoming videos. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next one.